He sleeps on the church steps with a thin blanket and a backpack that holds the last neat things he owns. A photo with the corners rubbed white. A clean pair of socks wrapped in a plastic bag like a promise he has not yet kept. A notebook with 3 good pages left. People say his name when they have to, Jonah, but most days the city calls him Hey or Nothing. He wakes before the bells, because cold has its own alarm, and walks to the bus station, where heat leaks from automatic doors that never close all the way. The floor smells like coffee and wheels. Announcements float over heads like birds that never land, and Jonah counts coins for a drink he will stretch as long as a morning. That is when he sees her. She is 6 or maybe 7, pink mittens, a cotton hat with a bauble that leans like a question, holding a stuffed rabbit against her chest as if it might jump. She is standing still in the flow of people who are not. She looks the way a candle looks in a room full of wind. Jonah knows that look because he wore it the night he could not find the shelter door, and the rain felt like a punishment. He goes to one knee slowly, so his face lives at her height and not above it. "What is your name?" he says. "Maya," she whispers, and the rabbit's glass eye catches a piece of the fluorescent light. "I lost Mommy." He does not ask where she last saw her because the answer to that is always a place that has moved on. He offers his cardboard sign like a little seat, sets it near a pillar so they are visible but not in the draft, and he says we will wait together and we will not be invisible. The rabbit is a serious partner. His name is Button, Maya informs him, because one eye is a button and the other used to be until it wasn't. Jonah nods as if this is the most important data he will learn today. He goes to the information desk and says there is a lost child, and the clerk lifts an eyebrow at Jonah's coat before she lifts the phone. She asks for details like age and hair, and what color is the hat, and Jonah answers clearly, because cool. Heads are a luxury, but they are also a choice. The clerk tells him to stay put, and an officer will make a sweep, and Jonah thanks her and borrows a marker, and writes in tall letters on the back of his sign, "Looking for Maya's mom." He lifts it over the moving river of commuters. A few people look away from their screens long enough to read it. Some step closer, look at the little pink mittens, reach for phones. One woman begins to cry quietly, and Jonah does not ask her why. He knows that sometimes your own old story rushes up when you least want to see it. A man in a blue windbreaker approaches with that official walk meant to reassure everyone else. "Sir," he says to Jonah in a tone that already makes a decision about who Jonah is, "please step aside." Jonah says the girl is with me because the girl asked to be with someone, and I was closest when she needed a person. He says it calmly, with the weight of someone who has had words taken and has learned to hold the ones he keeps. The officer studies Maya's face. She nods. Button nods also, which helps. The officer softens, radios the description again, and leaves them with a promise that sounds like a good idea wearing a uniform. Time passes at 2 speeds in a place like this. The clock hands outrun the heart, then the heart sprints ahead. Jonah tells Maya a story not about himself, but nearby to himself. About a time, a boy he once knew got lost in a grocery store and sat down in the cereal aisle because the boxes looked like signs, and the boy thought, if he looked like a sign too, someone would read him. The boy's mother found him because he had chosen to be still in a world that could not stop moving. Maya listens so hard he can hear it, her breath traveling in tiny loops. "Where is your mom going?" he asks, and Maya says we are meeting Grandma at the Blue Gate, and Mommy went to get cocoa, and I was holding Button, and then the crowd did a thing. Jonah knows the move the crowd does. He has learned to lean like a tree in a stream and let people park around him. He tells Maya that crowds are loud and mothers are louder in their bones, and that if her mom is searching the way he hopes she is, she will not leave the building without turning the air inside out. Then Jonah hears a voice that is not loud, but is sharp like a bell. He hears Maya's name spoken the way a name is struck, not said. A woman in a red coat stands near the escalators, looking as if her lungs have been replaced with fire. Maya. She calls again, as if the syllables can push through strangers and walls. Jonah does not stand up right away. He holds Maya's hand and points toward the red coat. "You go first," he says. The little girl runs and the rabbit gallops, and then there is the scene that even strangers hold their breath for, the reunions. That make you forgive the building for being itself. The mother sinks to the floor and pulls Maya onto her lap, both mittens on her face, the rabbit between them like a badge. She looks up at Jonah, with her life still in her arms, and in a voice. Trying to be steady, she says thank you, and then she says it again, until it becomes a sound more than a word. He shakes his head. He knows that sometimes thank you is heavy, and a person already carrying the day should not have to carry one more heavy thing. "Can I buy you lunch?" she asks. He could say yes, because yes would be honest, and he is hungry. But he also knows there is something else he needs more than one meal. He says maybe hot cocoa for Maya first, and I could use a phone call that will be answered. He says he has a shelter number that does not pick up for blocked calls, and he would like them to know he am a real person and a real phone. She stands, still holding Maya, and nods in a way that says her body has chosen a path before her mind can draw the map. The coffee stand steams. The man behind the counter hands over cocoa with extra marshmallows as if marshmallows could patch. What crowds tear. The mother pushes her phone across the counter to Jonah like a raft. He dials. He hears a ring that normally ends in a recorded voice that brings out the worst in men. The voice that says, "Please hold," without sounding like anyone ever wanted to. Today, a human answers. He says his full name the way you say it to an officer. Who will write it down? Jonah. He spells it. He says, "I am a walk-in for tonight, if there is a bed, and if there is not, I will sit in the chair and be good at sitting." The human says we have a bed if you are here by 6. He thanks the voice like it is a door. He hands the phone back, and in his face is the surprise of a man allowed to use the future tense. The mother has money in her hand, because that is the way the world usually closes a loop. He tells her it is kind, and he is grateful, and she can tuck the cash into her pocket and keep it warm, and instead she can write a number on the back of the card she is about to give him that will actually ring when he calls. She does. She adds the name of a community center 2 blocks away, writes "Ask for Teresa," underlined twice. Maya blows on her cocoa and asks if Button can say goodbye properly, and Jonah bows to the rabbit with more ceremony than anyone in the Yeti bus station has managed all week. "Thank you, Button," he says, "for choosing the right person to hold." In the afternoon, he walks back to the church steps, because promises are kept best with time and temperature. He packs his few things as if they are letters. At 5:30, he heads to the shelter, a low building that does not look like mercy until you stand in front of it. He signs the intake sheet with a pen chained to a counter, and the chain feels less like suspicion than like someone making sure. The pen cannot run away, too. In the bunk room, he lies on a mattress that remembers other bodies, and he stares at a ceiling that does not leak, and he feels the soft shock of being horizontal without fear. If you want to get better at sleeping, a counselor told him once, learn to name the sounds that are allowed to exist around you. He names the heater, the coughing, the page turning 2 beds over, his own breath. The next morning he goes to the community center, because that is what the card said. Teresa is real in a way paper can only hope to be. She says we run a morning program where we hand out food and fix small problems you can fit in a toolbox. Do you know tools? He says yes, and he does. He learned to replace a faucet for a landlord who congratulated him on saving the landlord money by not calling a real plumber. He learned to hang a door straight after a week of sleeping in a room where doors learned to stick. He learned the names of screws, the way some people learn names of movies. That first week, he tightens 8 chairs, banishes a leak from a bathroom. That had been insisting the building was a boat, and rewires a lamp that becomes the only warm light in a reading corner, where a boy decides to finish a book because now he can see the pages. The mother in the red coat appears on Friday with a bag that contains exactly the kind of new socks Jonah would have chosen if his pride were allowed to shop. She brings Maya, who presents Button for inspection. Button has acquired a stitched eye that does not match, and therefore looks like it has lived. Maya draws Jonah a picture of a bus station that is a little too happy to be true, and that is fine, because sometimes making a thing a little too happy is how it becomes something honest. Jonah tapes the picture inside his locker, a small metal box the center lets him use, and under it he writes in pencil, "Do the next right thing." Weeks stack up in 4s. He gets used to the rhythm of being expected and the rhythm of doors that open without needing to be convinced. He starts a tiny habit of leaving folding paper stars by the pay phone outside the center for anyone who needs a reason to look up before dialing. On a Tuesday, he hears crying in the lobby and finds a father whose son has wandered off in the park across the street. Jonah does not make a speech about preparedness. He grabs the sign he used that day in the bus station and writes a new message, and holds it high, and the boy sees it, because sometimes a familiar shape in a new color is enough to anchor you. The father returns a week later with a box of donuts that tastes like gratitude and cinnamon. Jonah takes one and breaks it in half, because mornings taught him that halves can be made into wholes if you place them gently side by side. One evening near closing time, the mother in the red coat returns with a small envelope. Inside is a pass for a month at a neighborhood gym with a laundry room and a shower where the water temperature does not play games. He thanks her, and she says the thanks are for him because he taught Maya that people with backpacks can be safe and that crowds are made of one person and one person and one person, and that if you are lost, you can choose a human and ask to borrow their calm. Jonah says, "I will try to be worth that lesson tomorrow too." He does not become a different man overnight. He is still tender where winter made him thin. He still wakes early because the part of him that listened for danger does not know how to sleep in. He still counts coins and decisions. But he begins to keep a different list, a list of things he has found that were not his and that he put back where they belong. A mitten, a phone, a photograph someone dropped in front of a bus, and he stepped into the street to rescue, because he had already learned that sometimes a whole family lives in one square of paper. On the first anniversary of that bus station morning, Jonah stands with Maya and her mother under the high ceiling where announcements fly. Maya is taller. Button is less frightened. They bring a small sign that says we found each other and ask Jonah to hold it while they take a picture. A guard who once looked at Jonah and saw a problem now nods and steps out of frame so the new shape of the world does not get blocked. When the photo is done, the mother asks if he still wants to make that phone call that someone will answer. He smiles and taps the card in his pocket. "I do," he says, and then he laughs because he already did. He calls anyway. The shelter answers on the second ring, and the voice recognizes him and says we have a studio coming open in a month for someone with good hours and a volunteer letter. You have both. He feels the future stand up from its chair. He answers yes, with a steadiness that makes the words sound like a key turning. That night, he walks past the church steps and leaves 2 things on the stone where his head used to rest. One is a pair of socks still in their band for someone whose morning is at the beginning. The other is his old sign. On the back he has, written in the same marker he used for Maya looking for tomorrow. Under it, smaller, he has added found IT.